Hello and welcome back to Learn the Bible in a Year. Today we're covering the tragic fall and exile of the northern kingdom of Israel, and we're going to visit how Paul was setting sail on a dangerous winter voyage towards Rome. So let's jump into it. The northern kingdom of Israel is collapsing under internal assassinations and the looming threat of the Assyrian Empire. In the southern kingdom of Judah, the righteous king Jotham has died and his son Ahaz has taken the throne. King Ahaz of Judah completely abandons God. He walks in the ways of the wicked kings of Israel. He even sacrifices his own son in the fire, following the detestable practices of the surrounding nations. When the kings of Aram and Israel team up to attack Jerusalem, Ahaz panics. Instead of crying out to God for deliverance, he empties the silver and gold from the temple and sends it to Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, begging for military rescue. The Assyrian king agrees, attacking Aram, capturing Damascus, and killing the Aramean king. Ahaz travels to Damascus to meet his Assyrian rescuer and sees a pagan altar there. He is so impressed by it that he sends the exact blueprints back to Uriah, the priest in Jerusalem, ordering him build a replica. When Ahaz returns, he pushes aside the bronze altar of the Lord, installs the new pagan altar in its place, and orders all regular sacrifices to be offered on it. He completely desecrates the temple to appease the king of Assyria. Meanwhile, the northern kingdom of Israel finally reaches its breaking point. Hoshea is the king of Israel, but he is essentially a puppet for the new Assyrian king, Shalmaneser. When Hoshea stops paying tribute and tries to form a secret alliance with Egypt, the king of Assyria discovers the treason and arrests Hoshea and throws him into prison. The Assyrian army then invades the entire land and lays siege on the capital city of Samaria for 3 years, and finally captures it. The Assyrians deport the Israelites, scattering them into exile across the Assyrian Empire. The text makes it explicitly clear why this catastrophe has happened. The Israelites had sinned against the Lord. They had built high places, set up sacred stones, worshipped idols, and practiced witchcraft. God had warned them relentlessly through the prophets and seers, begging them to turn from their evil ways, but they refused to listen. They became as stiff-necked as their ancestors. Because they rejected God's covenant, God removed them from his presence. The Assyrian king then brings foreigners from Babylon and other regions to settle in the empty towns of Samaria. These new settlers tried to mix the worship of the Lord with the worship of their own pagan gods, creating a deeply compromised, syncretic religion in the land. Oh boy. All right, jumping into the New Testament now. Paul is standing in a Roman auditorium in Caesarea, giving his defense before Governor Festus and King Agrippa and the city's elite. He has just shared his dramatic conversion on the road to Damascus, explaining that he simply preached what the Messiah would suffer and rise from the dead and would bring light to both Jews and Gentiles. As Paul reached the climax of his defense, Governor Festus suddenly erupts and shouts, "You are out of your mind, Paul. Your great learning is driving you insane." Paul calmly replies that he is not insane. What he is saying is true and reasonable. He turns his attention directly to King Agrippa, noting that the king knows these things because the events of Jesus' life and death were not done in a corner. They were public knowledge. Paul presses Agrippa directly. "King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? You know you do." Agrippa deflects the intense questioning, asking Paul if he thinks he can persuade him to be a Christian in such a short time. Paul replies that whether short or long, his prayer is that everyone listening would become exactly what he is, except for the chains. The king, the governor, and the rest of the council stand up and leave the room. As they talk privately, they agree that Paul has done nothing deserving death or imprisonment. Agrippa tells Festus that Paul could have been set free if it hadn't appealed to Caesar. But the appeal had been made, so Rome he must go. Paul is handed over to a Roman centurion named Julius, and they board a ship bound for the coast of Asia. It's late in the year and the sailing conditions are deteriorating, but they make slow headway along the coast. They eventually transfer to an Alexandrian ship headed for Italy, but the winds keep them from holding their course. They manage to sail under the shelter of the island of Crete and eventually limp into the harbor called Fair Havens. By this time, the Day of Atonement has passed, making the open sea extremely dangerous for winter travel. Paul warns the crew, telling them that continuing the voyage will result in disaster, bringing great loss to the ship, the cargo, and their own lives. But the centurion listens to the pilot and the ship's owner instead of Paul. Because Fair Havens isn't a great place to spend the winter, the majority decides to risk it and sail further up the coast to Phoenix, hoping to winter there. All right, and we're finishing up today reading Psalms 81, verses 8 through 16, and it goes like this. Hear me, my people, and I will warn you. If you would only listen to me, Israel, you shall have no foreign god among you. You shall not worship any god other than me. I am the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt. Open wide your mouth, and I will fill it. But my people would not listen to me. Israel would not submit to me. So I give them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. If my people would only listen to me, if Israel would only follow my ways, how quickly I would subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Those who hate the Lord would cringe before him. Their punishment would last forever. But you would be fed with the finest of wheat, with honey from the rock I would satisfy you. Alrighty, that is it for today's reading, and I will see all of you cool cats again here tomorrow.